with us now Dr. Sinan Ciddi. He's a senior fellow on Turkey at the Foundation for Defence of Democracy. It's great to see you, Sinan. So you are the one who produced that extensive reporting, I should say. You've written about the close ties between Erdogan and Maduro. Just tell us a bit about what you've discovered.
Right. So, Turkey has an extensive relationship with Venezuela going back to 2016 in three key areas. One is in gold mining operations, where Turkey has essentially helped provide a cash flow that has propped up the Maduro regime to the tune of about what we've traced about $1 billion worth of gold repository, which has basically kept up the Maduro regime for some years now. It's probably more than that, but we haven't been able to trace that. There is suspected narco trafficking going on, although Turkey claims to have seized a significant amount of cocaine shipments in its port of Mersin in southeastern Turkey. There is probably a significant amount of cocaine being transited to Europe through Turkey that is being shipped through Venezuela. And there have been implications of senior Turkish government officials and their offspring being implicated in that. And the last thing that Turkey is heavily invested in Venezuela is its oil industry, where Turkey has essential things like oil production and natural gas. And these have all been in violation of standing sanctions on U.S. sanctions on Venezuela, particularly as it relates to Executive Order 844. And this has really flown under the radar for some time now, but I think it does call upon lawmakers here to sort of scrutinize this even further, because this has really enabled the Maduro regime for some time. And Erdogan's criticisms of Maduro's capture in his phone call with Trump have been somewhat measured, because I suspect he realizes that Turkey could essentially land in hot water.
Well, quite, and great reporting, because that has barely been spoken about, the link between Turkey and Venezuela. We hear a lot about Hezbollah and Iran and Venezuela, but we don't hear so much about Turkey. And as you say, Turkey did come out with a very kind of lukewarm response to the US arrest of Maduro. Do you think Erdogan will now seek to distance himself or even try to rewrite history?
I mean, it would certainly be in his interest to sort of keep this very quiet, simply because, look, the relationship between the two countries blossomed after 2016. Erdogan saw in Maduro somebody that essentially stood up for him in the post-coup attempt in Turkey. Maduro was very quick to sort of praise Erdogan, saying, stand up to the coup makers in Turkey. And Erdogan reciprocated in 2019 when, Maduro stole the election and told Maduro, stand tall, we've got you, don't let this legitimately elected president take over power from you. And since then, the volume of trade between the countries, legitimate trade, has somewhat, has skyrocketed. But it's more on the illicit side that, U.S. lawmakers should really sort of burrow into and look, and accountability should be had, because there's a lot of illicit sort of things that that should be brought to bear, and that's specifically in the realm of narcotics, where there is very heavy circumstantial reporting that suggests that Turkey is heavily involved in narco trafficking, as well as essentially heavy investments in oil, in gold mining, and essentially paying for gold to be deposited in Turkey, in return for which the Maduro regime has benefited out of this. And just because Maduro has been deposed, it doesn't mean that Turkey is absolved of sanctions and sanctions relief, or has sanctions relief by the United States, because the government of Venezuela is still in power. So Turkey arguably can still be held accountable under US law for breach of US sanctions.
Do you think this might be a problem for Erdogan when it comes to Trump's perception of him? He has always been, a real admirer of President Erdogan, and Erdogan has a list of things that he wants from the United States. He wants to get Turkish troops into Gaza, for example. Do you think this might hurt that request?
It should, but I have not seen any indications thus far. Obviously, this is worth pointing out. It is worth raising with lawmakers in the United States, U.S. institutions, just to say, look, this man, leader of Turkey, that you have high respect and admiration for, he is saying one thing to you, but doing other things behind your back that is fundamentally undermining the security interests of the United States and your closest allies. I suspect that on the issue of Gaza, that Turkey is not going to be, positioning troops anywhere near it. I think that issue has been pretty much glossed over at this point. But I think more could be done on part of the Trump administration to really come to realize that Erdogan is much more of a threat than he has hitherto realized.
Sinan, great to talk to you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sinan Ciddi there.